Some bad things came out today, you know, those classified. You know the word classified. She sent vast amounts of classified information, including information classified as top secret. They said that she was extremely careless and, frankly, I say grossly incompetent. We can't have someone in the Oval Office who doesn't understand the meaning of the word confidential or classified, and maybe
6 years after Trump repeatedly ridiculed Hillary Clinton over her private email server, today's affidavit revealed the disgraced former president took nearly 200 classified documents with him when he left office. Dozens were labeled top secret and contained highly sensitive information and were kept in various rooms at the Palm Beach residence. We're happy to welcome back celebrated author and presidential historian Michael Beschloss. His latest work in a bookshelf full of works is Presidents of War. Michael, typically when you join us, we try to find historical comparisons to our current political moment. But as you tweeted today, and we all took notice, there is nothing in our history that quite compares to this.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Lovely to be with you as always, Alicia. You know, here's a case where an ex-president of the United States was told numerous times by the National Archives, and shouldn't have needed to be told, you're in danger of being prosecuted for breaking the Presidential Records Act of 1978 and other laws against an ex-president taking and storing classified documents. And yet, why did he do this? You know, we still don't know. Did he share the information from these classified documents with someone who shouldn't have it? Foreign governments, terrorists, someone else? And, you know, and the other thing is, we have to ask the question, did he get cash? Did he get favors for sharing that information? We do not know. You know, you were talking about history, Alicia. Think of Dwight Eisenhower as a general, 1944, planning D-Day, whose success depended on hitting the Germans by surprise, where the Allies would land, and what the plan of attack was. If someone had left out one piece of paper, that could have doomed tens of thousands of Allied soldiers and sailors to their deaths. The next year, Harry Truman was president. He had an atomic bomb, which Americans did not know, more than one. And he was thinking about using it against Japan. That depended on surprise. What if Truman or someone in his entourage had sloppily left a piece of paper out that got to the Japanese or some other country that wished us ill and undercut the ability that Truman had to end World War II? This is what is at stake. Why did Donald Trump do this?
But as you all know, that's not just what's at stake, because that is as it relates to our national security. But there's also this piece about what it means for America's role on the world stage. I mean, as other countries are watching this unfold, is the damage that has been done irrevocable?
Nothing is ever irrevocable, I think. But what friendly intelligence service would cooperate with us today in the same way that they might have 10 or 20 years ago, when they didn't have to worry about an ex-president of the United States, of all things, jeopardizing national secrets? As you know well, Alicia, you know, we have great intelligence services in the United States, but part of the reason that we are so prepared against surprise attacks, terrorist attacks, other dangers in this modern world is that we have friendly governments with great intelligence services with whom we share information. If they close up their briefcases, we're going to be living in a much more insecure state. The children in our families are going to be jeopardized. And I hold that at the feet of Donald Trump. Michael,
you asked if Americans are ever going to get a confession, an apology for any of this. I'm going to go out on a limb and imagine that you're probably not holding your breath for that from Trump. But what about other Republicans? I mean, those who have carried his water, those people who might still have a political career, a career of service ahead of them. Do you think we could hear the same from them?
I think that there's something that is really reassuring. You know, Alicia, here we are, what is it, about 11 hours since that affidavit was released today. And usually you expect, you know, hundreds of Trump supporting leaders, Republican leaders and others through the states saying bum rap, he's being treated unfairly, he didn't do anything wrong. as of 11 hours in, there's a resounding silence. And it may well be that the Republicans who have styled themselves as the party of national security for decades, maybe this was too much for them to take. And they will say, you know, we've swallowed enough to go along with Donald Trump, but putting the lives of young Americans in danger after centuries of young Americans giving their lives and risking their lives for our freedom, that's one step too far.